Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Okay, so today we're continuing our study of Srila Prabhupada and his Bhagavad Gita. And today we're going to discuss something very interesting. In the past we've discussed our understanding of Krishna. So today we're going to go a little bit deeper into that understanding. And basically there are three categories of qualities that Krishna has that are very significant. One is called Sad Aishwarya. The other is called Ashta Siddhis. And the third one is called Ashta Gunas. So, Saidashvarya, Ashta Siddhi, and Ashta Guna. These are three fundamental qualities of the Lord that differentiate him from all other living entities, including the Devatas. And so, we'll begin with the Sadashvarya. That means 6 opulences of the Lord. And this is what's known more, let's say, familiar to devotees. And that is, the Lord possesses all wealth, all knowledge, all beauty, all fame, all power, and all renunciation. So that's called Sadaishvarya, or 6 opulences of the Lord. And that means that Krishna is an eternal person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are all emanations from Krishna. Many things emanate from Krishna. And one category are the jivas. So, because we come from Krishna, we have many of the same qualities as Krishna. And we share some of his Aishwaryas, or his opulences. So some people are intelligent, some people are beautiful, some people are famous, some people are rich, some people are powerful, etc. Some people are renounced, and so forth. But no one has one or more or all of these opulences in full. Krishna has them in full. Most people have 1 or 2, and they become famous because of that. But Krishna has all 6 opulences in full. That is, completely. So, wealth, strength, beauty, fame, knowledge, and renunciation. Therefore, no one is greater than or equal to Krishna in these 6 opulences. Okay, so that's known by most devotees. And secondly, Krishna is has 8 yoga siddhis, or Ashta Siddhis. That is Anima, Mahima, Garima, Lagima, Prapti, Prakamya, Isitva, Vasitva, and Kamas Vasaita. So these are the 8 types of yoga siddhis. So what are they? So this is explained also in the what's called the prayers by the personified Vedas in the Srimad Bhagvatam. So the first of these siddhis is called anima. That means that Krishna can reduce himself smaller than an atom. So already an atom cannot be seen and very difficult to measure it. But scientists believe such a thing exists. Krishna is even smaller than the atom. So anima and then mahima, Krishna can expand himself to infinite size. Like say, for the material world, Krishna expands himself as the Virat Rupa that contains everything in the material world in this very special, gigantic expansion of Krishna's body. And then Garima, Krishna can become infinitely heavy, just like when the Trinavat demon, the tornado demon, whirled Krishna up, way up into the sky, and then he was going to drop him so he would die. Krishna became so heavy that the tornado demon collapsed and died. He couldn't, even though tornadoes are so powerful, the demon was not able to maintain the weight of Krishna. So that is Garima. And related to anima is lagima. That means the Lord can become weightless. And because of that weightlessness, the Lord enters every atom of the universe as well as every planet. And the reason why planets can stay in space and maintain fixed orbits also, because the Lord can make them weightless. And Hanuman had some partial aspect of this city. He was able to lift an entire mountain and carry it through the air from North India to Lanka. So that is one of the yoga cities that some yogis can obtain. Like, for example, Ravana and other demons, they also can master some of these cities or perfections. And then there's prapti, the ability to be anywhere at will. So the Lord can be in many different places at the same time. Just like in when Narada Muni went to see the Lord in Dwarka, he had heard that the Lord is simultaneously present with each one of his 16,108 wives, and each one has a different palace, and each one has their own, children. Narada Muni wanted to see this, and he went to Dwarka, and he visited Krishna with Rukmini first, and then Krishna with Satyabhama, and Krishna with this one and that one, and he was absolutely amazed that the same Krishna was with each one of the wives simultaneously and doing different things. He had a different set of children with each wife, different palaces. So the Lord was anywhere at will, at his own will. And then prakramya means realizing whatever the Lord desires. So the Lord simply thinks of something and immediately it happens. So that's, and I'm sorry, yeah, so prapti, prakamya, and then isitva, supremacy over nature. The Lord controls nature completely. Nature is made up of the three modes of material nature. So Krishna says in the 7th chapter, Ichaiva satpika bhava rajasas tamasas chaye matayaveti tan vidina twaham te sute mai. So he says 7th chapter, verse number, I think, 13. Let's see what that is. And he says, number 12. Know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. So material nature means the three modes of material nature that control everything. And Krishna is the controller of the three modes of material nature. So he has supremacy over material nature. And then Vasitva, he controls all natural forces. So there are different forces in nature. They're basically, you have like gravity, you have electromagnetism, and so forth. Krishna controls all those forces. And then Kama Vasayita, he can create entire universes at his own will. So, and some yogis, mystic yogis, have been able to imitate this to a certain degree. Like, for example, Vishwamrita Muni, when he got upset that when he was raising a Sudra to Indraloka in the universe, Indra prohibited the Sudra from entering Indraloka. So Vishwamrita Muni used up all his mystical powers to create an alternate universe, an alternate Indra, and to raise the Sudra up to the alternate planet of Indra in the alternate universe. So yogis can, to a certain degree, imitate partially these 8 yoga siddhis, but Krishna has them in full. Okay, so these two things are rather well known, the Ashta siddhis and the Sad Aishwarya. However, there's one, the Ashta Gunas are not very well known, and we're going to discuss these in detail now. Ashta Gunas means the Lord has 8 transcendental qualities, and that is something that, all of these differentiate Krishna from all the living entities, but some entities are able to not emulate completely, but partially some of those. But now, these 8 special qualities, or transcendental qualities, is who really differentiates Krishna from all the living entities. So number 1 is that he's always untouched by the contamination of material existence. This is also mentioned in the Ishopanishad, where it says, get that verse. Yeah, in the Ishopanishad, Krishna says he is apapavidam. What does that mean? He's antiseptic and prophylactic. So that is mantra 8. Sa prayagas chukam akayam avranam asnaviram vidam sudam apapavidam kavir manisi paribu swayambhu yatatat yato ratan vihadadach. So it says, such a person must factually know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, meaning he doesn't have a material body, he has a spiritual body. Omniscient, he knows everything. Beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, a self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. So when it says, pure and uncontaminated, that's apapavidam. So he's always untouched by the contamination of material nature. This is also mentioned in Ishopanishad, apapavidam, pure and uncontaminated. Such as the sun is never polluted by any contamination, the Supreme Lord is never polluted by any sinful activities. Although Krishna's actions may sometimes seem impious, he is never polluted by such actions. So that's number 1 of the Ashta Gunas. Then the second transcendental quality of the Lord is that Krishna never dies. And he's never born also. So it means that he's fully eternal. And also he never has a material body. He has therefore, Lord Brahma says, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sat Chitananda Vigraha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ishvara Parama Krishna, is Krishna. That's what his name is. And he has a body, Vigraha, made of Sat Chitananda, eternity, bliss, and knowledge. So that differentiates him from all the living entities. in the material world that have material bodies made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. And all living entities in the material world, even Brahma, die eventually. Krishna never dies. So in the Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, Krishna informs Arjuna both he and Arjuna had many appearances in this material world, but that he alone remembers all such activities, past, present, and future. So this is the 4th chapter, verse number 5, where Krishna says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Bahuni me Vyatitani Janmani Tavacharjuna Tanyaham Veda Sarvani Natvam Veta Parantapa. The personality of Godhead said, many, many births, both you and I, Arjuna, have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. So, this is another unique quality of the Lord. He never dies, so therefore, he never forgets any of his previous manifestations. Whereas we, as jivas, if we appear in the material world, we have a body that's subject to birth and death. When we die, we forget everything about the previous birth and previous life. Whereas Krishna, his body never deteriorates, he's never born, he never dies, he's always existent. And he can remember. He tells Arjuna, many, many births you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot. So, therefore, in the Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, 33rd verse, it says, Advaitam achutam anadim anantarupam adyam purana purusham navayovanam cha vedesu durlabam adurlabam atma bhakto govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. So in other words, I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is the original person, absolute, infallible, without beginning. Although expanded into unlimited forms, he is still the same original, the oldest, and the person always appearing as a fresh youth. Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord are usually understood by the best Vedic scholars, but they are always manifest to pure, unalloyed devotees. So, this is, more evidence about the fact that Krishna never dies. He's Advaitam Achyutam. Advaita means there's no difference between his body and his soul. Whereas there is a difference between our body and our soul. And also, he's never born, never dies. Well, we were never born, and our soul never dies. But if we become attached to a material body, we forget very easily not only things that we do in this life, but previous births and deaths. Okay, and then Krishna, also it says, Ramadi Murti Sukala Nyamena Tistan Anavataram Akarod Bhuvane Sukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pamanyo Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. That is Brahmasita 539. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, or Krishna, who is always situated in various incarnations as Rama, Nrsimha, and many sub-incarnations as well, but who is the original personality of Godhead known as Krishna, and who incarnates personally also. Yes, he comes in his original form once in the day of Brahma, during the 28th Manvantar incarnation, and let's see, what is it? The 28th Manvantar incarnation. I'm sorry, not the 28th. The 7th Manvantar incarnation and the 28th cycle of 4 ages. Okay, so then it says that Krishna, although one without a second, manifests himself in innumerable forms. He is like the Vaidurya stone, which changes color yet still remains one. All these multi-forms are understood by the pure, unalloyed devotees, but not by a simple study of the Vedas. Therefore it says, Vedesa durlabham adurlabham atma bhakto. One cannot understand Krishna simply by reading the Vedas. Why not? Because many of his qualities are mutually contradictory. And people just can't imagine that, because we don't have that ability to have mutually contradictory qualities. That means that he can be very close to us as Paramatma, but yet very far away in Goloka Vrindavan, enjoying his transcendental pastimes at the same time. So only pure devotees, unalloyed pure devotees, can understand these things, because they no longer have bodily attachment. They're no longer preoccupied by selfish desires. They're no longer, their consciousness is no longer prisoner of the three modes and Maya, or illusion. They've become transcendental by engaging in pure devotional service to the Lord. Thus, the Lord gives them the knowledge by which they can understand him. But simply by the study of the Vedas, they will not be able to understand properly Krishna. On the other hand, you have devotees like Arjuna, who are constant companions of Krishna. Whenever the Lord incarnates, Arjuna is with him. He's an eternal associate of the Lord. And so Arjuna is one of the devotees that can understand the Lord. And he was present, actually, when Krishna first spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Vivaswan, but in a different capacity. So we see that Krishna has this ability, he has this eternal body, spiritual body. Okay, and then Prabhupada explains that forgetfulness is due to death. So when a person dies and takes birth again, they forget what they did in the previous life. And when we go to sleep at night, we forget what we did during the day, and we forget everything. But when we wake up, we remember a little bit about our dreams, but then we'll forget about them. And now we adjust ourselves to our physical body and the activities of the day. So we're living in a two dream worlds. At night we dream, and then when we wake up we forget, and during the day we dream, and when we go to sleep we forget. So therefore, sleep is a little bit like death, where you forget who you are, what you are. Okay, so Krishna never dies. Okay, so that's the second Ashta Guna, second of the 8 transcendental qualities of the Lord. Now, the third, he never becomes old or an old man. Although Krishna was a great-grandfather when he appeared on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he did not appear like an old man. Krishna cannot be polluted by any sinful activities. Krishna never dies. Krishna never becomes old. Okay, so number 4 is that he's not polluted by any sinful activities. So, if he engages in something that looks sinful, actually because of his absolute power, it is not sinful. Like, for example, he may steal butter from the houses of neighboring gopis. But although the gopis complain to Mother Yasoda, actually they're very happy that he does it. And it gives them great joy seeing him break their pots of butter and distribute it to monkeys and his friends and Balaram, and eat it himself. So his stealing is not the same as the stealing in the material world, which is an abominable act. It gives transcendental pleasure to the devotees. So this is hard to understand, but it's a fact. Just like when Krishna encourages Arjuna to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra, Arjuna argues on the basis of morality. It's not right for him to kill so many people, and then their wives won't be protected, and the children will not have a father, and also many of them are his cousin brothers, so one should not fight against his own family. So these are moral arguments that in one context are 100% valid, but in the context of speaking to Krishna, they're not valid, because Arjuna is duty-bound as a Kshatriya to fight in order to protect the principles of religion, dharma. And that's his duty. And to not execute his duty, especially when Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is asking him to do it, is actually sinful. Anytime we refuse to follow the instructions of Krishna, we commit sins. So, therefore, although his arguments seem valid in the context of the battlefield of Kurukshetra, they're not valid. And Krishna points this out to Arjuna. So, Krishna also cannot be polluted by any sinful activities. And if we're following Krishna's instructions, like Arjuna followed Krishna's instructions, although he killed his guru, Dronacharya, he killed the grandsire of the Kudu dynasty, and one of his mentors, Bhisma Pitamaha, he is glorified today because he only acted under the order of Krishna. And in order to kill Bhisma Pitamaha, he asked permission of Bhisma Pitamaha to kill him, and Bhisma taught him how and instructed him how to do it. So these are transcendental activities. They seem incomprehensible to mundane people, but devotees can understand them. Understand what? These transcendental pastimes with the Lord. So Arjuna is not an evil person, although if another person did what he did, they would be considered evil. But he only acted under the order of the Lord. And the other thing is that everyone who died on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained liberation from cycle of birth and death, because they witnessed Krishna at the moment of death. He was there right on the battlefield. They could see him. So it's difficult for people to understand these things because they don't have faith in God. They don't listen to authoritative explanations of the Vedic knowledge, and they just speculate. And by speculating, they get things wrong. So he never becomes old. Number 4, he's never polluted by any sinful activities. And then number 5, Krishna is never subject to lamentation. So that's important because anyone in the material world who's not in a transcendental position is always troubled by lamentation and desire. Sochati and kankshati. These are symptomatic of people who are entangled in the law by the laws of karma because of sinful activity or pious activity. Therefore, they are lamenting for things that they've lost and hankering for things that they don't have. Krishna is not, let's say, subject to lamentation. And then number 6, he's never hungry. And he's never thirsty. And then number 7 is that whatever he desires is perfectly lawful. Well, he might do things that seem unlawful for ordinary people, but because of his absolute power, whatever he does is actually right. Not because he's some kind of a dictator or anything like that, but because anyone who comes in contact with Krishna is benefited. It's just like anything that comes in touch with fire will be burned, and anyone who comes in contact with Krishna is liberated from the cycle of birth and death, or benefited in one way or another. Just like the hunchback Kubja, she came in contact with Krishna, and he straightened her hump out, made her a beautiful young woman. And just by hugging him, she became transformed. So no one else has that power, but Krishna does. So anyone who comes in contact with Krishna is benefited. You can contact Krishna through his name, through his katha, or hearing about him, through chanting his holy names, through acts of devotional service, through recitation of choice poetry glorifying him, etc. And whoever does those things is benefited. And number 7, that is, whatever he decides cannot be changed by anyone. So if he decides that someone should die, no one can stop it. And if he decides that someone should be saved, no one can hurt that person. And number 8, okay, that was number 8, I'm sorry. Yeah, number 7 was whatever he desires is perfectly lawful, and whatever he decides cannot be changed. So these are the 8 transcendental qualities of the Lord. So most people don't know about these 8 qualities, but Krishna has them, and therefore, besides these 8 qualities, Ashta Gunas, Krishna is known as Yogeswara because he has all opulences or facilities of mystic powers, and we went through those mystic powers. And for example, Anima Siddhi, he can become smaller than the smallest, and therefore it says Ekopyaso Rachaitum Jagadanda Kotim Yaschaktirasti Jagadanda Chaya Yananta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami. So he's present in the heart of every living entity, and he's present in every atom of the universe. So therefore, and then also as Garbhodaksha, Vishnu and Mahavishnu, he's bigger than anything else that exists. So these are, his unfathomable, transcendental opulences and perfections. Okay, so we just discussed the Sad Aishwarya, Ashta Siddhi, and Ashta Guna. These 3 transcendental attributes of the Lord that differentiate him from everyone else. So if you want to be able to explain Krishna to people, you have to know these things. This is basically scientific knowledge, because Krishna, obviously, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is different than everyone else. Although we may have certain qualities as Krishna because we emanate from him, but he must have other qualities that we don't have, and these are the 6 opulences, the 8 mystic perfections, and the 8 transcendental qualities that no one else can emulate. So that was interesting discussion. Okay, so now we want to explain something else about Krishna. So in the Brahma Samhita, it says that the Lord is described as Achyuta, Acyuta, which means that he never forgets himself. He's, in other words, infallible. Like if someone has a failing memory, they can sometimes forget what their name is, or they can sometimes forget who their relatives are, or they can forget where they live, or they can forget where they left their car keys. Right? So they're not infallible. But Krishna, He is achyuta. He never forgets himself, even though he may enter into the material world in one of his pastimes. But all of us who enter into the material world, we become conditioned by the modes of material nature, and we forget. We can't even remember what we ate the day before, or what we did a week ago, or where we were 1 year ago. But Krishna never forgets, because his body is not subject to change, whereas our body is constantly changing, and that influences our memory. Okay, so he's achyuta. He never forgets himself. Therefore, the living entities and the Lord can never be equal in all respects, even if the living entity is as liberated as Arjuna. Although Arjuna is a devotee of the Lord, he sometimes forgets the nature of the Lord, but by the divine grace, a devotee can at once understand the infallible condition of the Lord, whereas a non-devotee or demon cannot understand this transcendental nature. So this is another distinguishing quality of the Lord. Therefore, people who are demonic cannot understand Bhagavad Gita with their demonic brains. Krishna remembered acts which were performed by him millions of years before, but Arjuna could not, despite the fact that both Krishna and Arjuna are eternal in nature. We may also note herein that a living entity forgets everything due to his change of body, but the Lord remembers because he does not change his Satchitananda body. He is Advaita, means there's no distinction between his body and himself. So everything in relation to him is spirit, whereas the conditioned soul is different from his material body. And because the Lord's body and self are identical, his position is always different from that of the ordinary living entity, even when he descends to the material platform. The demons cannot adjust themselves to this transcendental nature of the Lord, which the Lord himself explains in the following verse. So we're discussing today all the things that distinguish Krishna from ordinary people and from the devas and from everyone. Obviously, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has everything we have and more. And unless we understand that, we remain an atheist. So then also, so real Advaita is understanding there's no difference between Krishna and his body. Krishna's body is transcendental. It's not different than his soul. We have a body that's different than our soul. Therefore, this duality between our body and our soul confuses us, and when we hear about Krishna, we project our own shortcoming onto the Lord and assume that he is like us. But unless we learn the difference between ourselves and Krishna, there are certain similarities, but there are also major differences. Unless we understand that, we remain basically an atheist. Because we can't, our false ego won't let us imagine that there's someone greater than us. The whole message of Bhagavad Gita is based on the idea that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, completely transcendental, and we're all subordinate to it. This is explained also, let me find where this quote is, because it's a very important point. Let me see. Yeah, it's the 6th chapter, 30th verse. Prabhupada makes a very important statement. He says, a person in Krishna consciousness certainly sees Lord Krishna everywhere, and he sees everything in Krishna. Such a person may appear to see all separate manifestations of the material nature, but in each and every instance he is conscious of Krishna, knowing that everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. Nothing can exist without Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything. So that is a proverb that we should remember. Nothing can exist without Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything. This is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. Nothing can exist without Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything. This is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the development of love of Krishna, a position transcendental even to material liberation. At this stage of Krishna consciousness, beyond self-realization, the devotee becomes one with Krishna in the sense that Krishna becomes everything for the devotee, and the devotee becomes full in loving Krishna. An intimate relationship between the Lord and the devotee then exists. In that stage, the living entity can never be annihilated, nor is the personality of Godhead ever out of sight of the devotee. To merge in Krishna is spiritual annihilation. A devotee takes no such risk. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita 538, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santak Sadeva Hridayesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achinta Gunas Swarupam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship the primeval Lord Govinda, who is always seen by the devotee whose eyes are anointed with the pulp of love. He is seen in his eternal form of Sham Sundar, situated within the heart of the devotee. So, when we purify our eyes with tears of love that emanate from them as we chant the holy name of the Lord, and we feel and we recognize all the benedictions that we've received from Krishna, at that point we're able to actually see Krishna also. At this stage, the Lord Krishna never disappears from the sight of the devotee, nor does the devotee ever lose sight of the Lord. In the case of a yogi who sees the Lord as Paramatma within the heart, the same applies. Such a yogi turns into a pure devotee and cannot bear to live for a moment without seeing the Lord within himself. Okay, so this is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness, that nothing can exist without Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything, and thus the devotee knows that everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. Okay. And then going further, in the 7th and the 8th chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna, he says, Kavim Puranam Anasositaram Anor Aniyamsam Anusmaritya Sarvasiddhataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, and he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and he is transcendental beyond this material nature. So here we have 9 unique qualities of Lord Krishna. Again, it differentiates him from all others. So this is the way, this is scientific knowledge of who God is. most people want to speculate about who God is, and they make up all kinds of anthropomorphic concepts of God or impersonal concepts of God. Anthropomorphic means like themselves, like a human being, an ordinary human being. Or impersonal because they can't imagine that God is a person with all the, let's say, weaknesses that people have. So then they imagine that God is not a person. It's impersonal, a force or an energy. So we need to be able to explain the Aishwarya, the 6 opulences of the Lord, Ashta Siddhis, the 6 mystic perfections of the Lord, Ashta Gunas, the 8 mystic perfections of the Lord, the Ashta Gunas, the 8 transcendental qualities of the Lord, and then supplementary knowledge that Lord is Achyuta. He never forgets himself. He's infallible. And that the basic principle of Krishna consciousness is that everything depends upon Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything. So once we begin to assimilate all these concepts, that is, nothing can exist without Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything, and then the idea that he is he has all knowledge, or he knows everything. He's the oldest person. He's the controller. He's smaller than the smallest. He's the maintainer of everything. He's beyond all material conception. He's inconceivable. He's always a person. He's luminous like the sun, and he's transcendental beyond this material nature. These are all facts about Krishna that differentiate him from ordinary living entities and from the demons. From the demigods and demons. Okay. And Krishna is achintya, is inconceivable. He's smaller than the smallest. That means the Lord can enter into the heart of the soul. Now the soul is already smaller than an atom, and Krishna can enter into the heart of the soul. It means he's smaller than the soul. So these are inconceivable ideas. Scientists, they do their work by measuring things and quantifying things. How can they quantify the size of the Lord when it's smaller than an atom? They can't even quantify an atom. See? And how can they quantify Mahavishnu, who from whose body emanate billions of universes? So the scientists run into a impossible situation where they cannot quantify these things, and therefore they say, well, these are all fantasies. They're just it's not scientific because we can't measure it. It's like a blind man who says, his friend tells him, oh, the sun is very beautiful today. He says, I don't believe it because I can't see it. So, because the blind man can't see doesn't mean nobody can see. And because the scientists can't measure the size of the soul, that doesn't mean the soul doesn't exist. That just means that they have limited perception. Okay. So the homework for tomorrow is to look up in the 12th, in the Srimad Bhagvatam, 1 second. In the Srimad Bhagvatam, the prayers by the personified Vedas. And find, in the Krishna book, you look up the prayers by the personified Vedas and make a list of the 6 opulences of the Lord, Aishwarya, the 8 mystical powers of the Lord, Ashta Siddhis, and the 8 transcendental qualities, Ashta Guna, of the Lord, and also we went over the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse number 5. So read the purport and write down supplementary qualities of the Lord by reading that purport. And then the 8th chapter, verse number 9, write down some more supplementary qualities of the Lord that differentiate him from everyone else. And then the 6th chapter, 30th verse, Bhagavad Gita, write down what is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. So that's the homework. So 1, look up in the Krishna book, in the prayers by the personified Vedas, Aishwarya, Ashta Siddhi, and Ashta Guna. 2, read chapter 4, verse number 5. Write down supplementary unique qualities of Krishna. And then 6th chapter, 30th verse, write down what is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. And then 8th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, verse number 9, write down more supplemental unique qualities of Krishna. And also read that purport. Okay. Are there any questions? Yeah, the 6 transcendental, 6 opulences, 8 yoga siddhis, and 8 transcendental qualities. Yes. Well, it's a question of consciousness. You might think you understand it now. I could ask you a question 2 weeks from now, and you probably wouldn't be able to answer it. All right? So, by repetition and discussion, where you actually do some research and reading and writing, you'll get a deeper understanding. And then, in other words, if you just hear it, it could go in one ear and out the other ear. You might understand understand something right now. 2 weeks from now, you'll forget it. But by doing the homework, you have a chance to actually think about it in a deeper sense and write something down, so you have a better chance of remembering. Okay? And what I usually do is, we'll discuss something, you'll do the homework, and then we go on to other subjects, and I'll come back to it 1 month later or 1 year later. And usually people have forgotten it, so we go over it again. You understand? So that repetition is a way is to understand through repetition. Otherwise, simply hearing, our minds are not strong enough to hear one time and remember. That's why repetition is very important. And doing homework is important. Like, if you just come and listen to classes, that's very good. But how much of it do you remember? You see my point? So doing the homework is very important. And then my discussing these things, I mean, what we've discussed previously in the last 3 years, 12 defining qualities of Krishna, right? And we've gone over it several times. But we keep coming back to it, right? Because otherwise, no one will remember this. And you have to remember this because if you go out on Sankirtan or you meet someone and you begin talking about Krishna, they might ask you, what's so special about your understanding of God? How is it different than the Christian's understanding of God? How would you answer that question? You say, oh, it's the same thing. That's not an answer. No, we have a lot more information about God, but you have to master that information. Otherwise, you won't be able to make these explanations. Okay? So today, I'm introducing a new way to understand who Krishna is. He has Aishwarya, 6 opulences. He has Ashta Siddhi. He possesses 6 mystic powers. I'm sorry, 8. And he has Ashta Guna. He has 8 transcendental qualities. So if you learn what they are, already you'll be able to give a very scientific and precise explanation of why Krishna is unique and why the understanding of the Vedas is much more complete than the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, the Buddhist writings, etc. But if you don't learn these things, you just listen, it goes in one ear, out the other ear. 25 years from now, 30 years from now, you still didn't learn anything. You have to actually focus on this. Otherwise, the mind plays tricks on us. We forget things easily. But Prabhupada has given so much information, and now he's summarizing it, in 6 opulences, 8 mystical powers, 8 transcendental qualities. So learn these. And then you go beyond that. You learn more by the different references I just gave. But if you don't write it down, you won't be able to do your homework. Jai Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai. So you want me to repeat the homework one more time? What?
I wrote down everything.
You did?
Yes.
What did you write down?
You can take from Krishna book, check what are the prayers by the personified Vedas.
Yes.
Is that the one homework?
Where you'll find Sadaishwarya, Ashta Siddhi, Ashta Guna.
Then you said like Bhagavad 4.5, read and write the supplementary for that. Then like chapter 8, 9th verse, again write the supplementary and the qualities of the Lord. Then finally, 6th chapter, 30th verse, basic principles of Krishna.
Perfect. All right. Right on. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. You do your homework all the time, you'll be a big scholar. Yeah. Oh, that?
Everything is gone. Like everything.
How many people came?
We served about 66 people.
Okay.
And we had like about 10, 12 people go.
Wow.
The group of students came.